G'day everyone. Oh, no noise. Let me just check this audio. Oh, there we go. G'day everyone. Popping in for our usual weekly live show. I put this down at 10 o'clock. I meant to say 9:30 actually. I have to come in earlier today because I've got a shoot this afternoon. G'day Oreo, good to see you on here. Yeah, I've got a big shoot this afternoon where I'm photographing a whole stack of girls doing their deb. So I had to pop in earlier. I think that's Kerry just popping in to give me a lovely coffee. Isn't she wonderful? I could hear her sliding the door open. Got some really interesting things to discuss with you today. It should be great. Hello.
Hello.
How are you? Just say hi to everyone.
There's your coffee.
Thank you.
Hi. I'm off to do housework.
Have fun.
Exciting.
See ya.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, so I've got some really cool things to share with you today. We're going to go through a stack of stuff, actually news and rumours. We're going to talk about the new a7S III rumours that are out. We're Nikon and Canon rumours. The Tamron announcement, we've got a stack of stuff to actually go through, so it's going to be really interesting. So if you could, guys, could you please give me a thumbs up just so everyone knows I'm online? And I'll mention that a couple of times as we go along, just so we can get everyone knows I'm actually on earlier today. So let me bring up some of these questions or just see who's actually here. So Oreo's obviously here. Palantia's here as well, saying, Dave, g'day. Durowski, message retracted. Barry's here as well. G'day, Barry. Heath's here. Carl's here. Hello, David and friends. And we are all friends here. Dominic's here as well. G'day, mate. How are you? Marty said, g'day, Dave. Mickey Blue Eye said, hi, everyone. Lance said, hello, all. Chris said, hello, David. It's a double Corona day. It's cold here today. We've had really beautiful weather the last 2 days, and I've got this shoot outside today, this afternoon at 2 o'clock, and it's been pouring down, but I notice it's just clearing now. It's the first rain we've had for ages, actually, but it has just cleared, so I think it's going to be fine this afternoon, but it's going to be interesting. So I'm looking forward to that shoot this afternoon. Kerry's going to assist me today. Lance is saying, hello all, a double Corona day. I wish I'm having a coffee here. It's too cold to have Corona. I'll be having Corona again with you in a couple of months, once it warms up a bit. Ron said, hi David, 2 sessions for me in 1 day. Woohoo! Like said, hi David, it's cold in Perth. Yeah, it's cold here today too. I think it's only going to be a top of 14 or 15 Celsius. It's going to be cold today. Oreo said, hi Kerry. She's gone, Oreo. Mickey Blue, oh God, I forgot to put the timer on again. How long have we been in? 3 minutes 10. I better put it on. Plus. Hopeless. I always forget to turn the timer on. So I can put in the description down below the timeline. If you are watching this later, I will stick the timeline down below so you can skip anything that you're not actually interested in. What else have we got? No beer. Mickey Blue Eyes, no, not today. It's a bit cold today. Plus, I've got to work this afternoon, so I'm going to stay stay reasonably sober. Daniel said, g'day, Dave, from Dan and Kate in the UK. Slipping on a Sauvignon Blanc. Oh, that sounds nice. Oh, I can't wait for it to start warming up again here. PR and IT said, hey, David's greeting from Germany. Quite late, but you are interesting to go to sleep. Thanks. Lance said, Southern California here. Cheers. Mike said, hi, David. No Belgian beer today. No, it's too cold, Mike. Plus, I'm working this afternoon. I've got a big shoot on this afternoon. Joe said, g'day. Null said, hi from Waco, Texas. Trevor said, is this camera out in the wild, and do you know anyone who's testing it? I'm going to talk about things like that soon. Trevor, Lance is just saying g'day. Mike said hi, all don't forget to thumbs up. Thanks, Mike. Hello from the Bronx. That's Maddensea, I think. You see. Richard said hi, David. Lawrence said hi, all, and that's about it. It's 35 degrees Celsius. Oh, I wish. I miss those days. Oh, they'll come around quick enough. The Panda's here as well. G'day, Panda. So basically, yeah, I'm going to go through a stack of these rumours today with you and things like that, because I want to have a real discussion with you too about the Canon and Nikon rumours. I might do a separate post on this as well to sort of be in more detail, but I thought I'd go through everything with you guys about that, because it is going to be an interesting time the next couple of 3 months. I noticed Jared Poland put up a video this morning. I haven't viewed it yet, but I can imagine the sort of things that he's talking about, and I'm going to have a discussion with you at the end about that as well. Don't forget too, if you want to have questions, put at David Oastler, as you saw the panda just said down there, just so that you know I find it. Look, I will try and go through all the questions anyway, but it makes it a lot easier to find if I see that, because I don't miss it because it comes in orange, as you can see right there. So that's pretty important as well. If you can, guys, give me a big thumbs up just so everyone knows that I'm on early. I really would appreciate that. It's basically just supporting me as well and letting everyone know I have popped on early. I put down 10 o'clock for this, but I meant to say 9:30 because I've got to get ready for this shoot that I'm doing at 1 o'clock. And obviously, like I said, if you're not watching live, leave the questions down below and I will answer all of those questions for you as well, because it's starting to get an interesting time over the next 2 or 3 months. I think we're going to see some big developments in this whole industry, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But let's start first, because I wanted to talk to you about new gear. So put in here if you have any new gear. Just put hashtag new gear if you like, and then I'll find it. Because I'd love to know first what sort of new gear you guys have been purchasing. I'll show you what I've got first to start with, just so you can see that crane gimbal that I had. Let me just switch over the camera. So as you know, I have been shooting with the Moser Aircross an awful lot. Let me just start this. Now, you have to balance this with the lens out, because if you don't do it, I balance it with the lens out. So I bought this Crane M to use basically for, with this RX100, because I've found that basically I wanted something fairly light that would work fairly light, and also I can lift this up once it's in, and then I can turn it towards me, and then obviously I can see myself in the viewfinder like that. Now, one of the good things too that I've noticed is I think if you click the mode, was it twice? Or it might be 3 times actually, it does a selfie, I think. I've got to see if I can get it to work now. Yeah, there we go. It's 3 times. If you do it 3 times, it will actually turn around and do selfie on you, so you can actually see yourself in the screen. And this is why I bought this, because I thought it's going to be a fantastic gimbal for this type of work. And I really do like the way it looks. And this is the whole reason why I bought the RX100, is to have that front-facing screen that I can have it facing back towards me. And it's very light. Like if you compare this gimbal to, say, the Moser, I'll have to step back so you can sort of see. The Moser is much bigger. I mean, the motors are much bigger on the Moser. It's a much bigger gimbal, and this one is a fair bit heavier. So that's the reason why I wanted to get a smaller gimbal, and I'm actually really liking this for what it is. I think prefer the Moser Aircross, obviously, for anything big. Like, I don't think you'd be fitting something like an A9 or whatever on this. I think this would just stress the motors, and that would be the problem with it. The other thing too is I've bought the cable for this that you can actually connect to the camera and connect to the actual gimbal itself. And let me just see if I can pull this back. Yeah. And then I can actually use the zoom lever down here to zoom in and out. So that's a great thing as well. So I can actually use that to zoom the lens, because this does have the zoom lens. So I thought I'd show you that. I'm really happy with it, actually. I can't wait to have a go with it and use it. Yeah, I just thought I'd show you that. So that's probably the only thing that I've bought camera related. I did also buy some Sony headphones. I bought the really good wireless headphones as well that I love. So let me just put that down there so I get it out of the way. So that's really the only thing that I've bought so far this week. I have also bought online, and I'll talk to you about this when I get them. I'm just going to open it up just so I can see it in mail. I'm just going to see if I can find it for you. I did buy, where are we? B&H. I did buy some headphones. I've bought these two-way communication headphones, and I'll talk about that in another thing as well. Let me see if I can just bring them up, and then I'll show you which ones I've just purchased. So let me just go to here, new window, and then I'll show you basically the ones that they are. Because I love using these wireless headphones, so I've bought these ones. So let me bring it up. So I've bought these. So I've bought a couple of these, and I bought some earpieces. I noticed Scott uses them. He's now doing wedding film school. I've used these walkie-talkies. I've got an older set that I use all the time when I'm doing weddings, and it's quite funny. People are always amazed that they see a photographer wearing a walkie-talkie, but they've only just got the normal headpiece like what these are. I wanted a better headpiece, and I noticed Scott talking about these the other day had a much better range, so I'm actually going to buy, I've bought 2 of these. That I can use, and I really like it because then, say, Kerry, who's my second shooter at weddings, we can communicate in the church or whatever we're doing, and we use them all the time. And I just wanted to get a better walkie-talkie. So when I get them, I'll let you know how they actually are. But let me know anyway if you use walkie-talkies in your shooting, but I really love them. Now let me go back through some of these because I want to know if any of you guys have got any new gear. So let me know if you've bought anything that's interesting. Charles is saying hello from Stratton Island. Lawrence said, I need to piss off my friends that just bought me the Panasonic GH5S with some juicy A7S 3 rumours. That's talking to you, Daryl. There's nothing wrong with the GH5S, Lawrence. That's a really nice camera. But I'll talk about the A7S 3 shortly. I'm going to come back to some of these questions a little bit later because I just want to talk about gear at this stage. Now let's go back to new gear. So I don't know what time I started. I'm just going to have to do that later on, I think. What else have we got? So Lawrence, anyway, got that A7S, the GH5S. What else have we got? What time is it over there, David? It's 1:45 in the morning. It is 9:51 a.m. here, Daniel. Added my wife Kate to the Facebook group. She's just starting out in photography and video and doing great work. Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, don't forget to join that group, guys. Don't forget to join this group. It's fantastic. We're having a ball. Look at the macro shot that was last week's competition winner. This week's competition is actually slow shutter speed. And if we look at some of the stuff that's being posted there, you'll see that I'm getting a stack of people submitting their slow shutter speed shots for this week. I mean, we have just such fantastic work in this group. You can share your Facebook pages, you can share your Instagram, YouTube videos, everything. But check out all these things. Now, I choose one of these to win each week, and then it gets put in the header. So I give a weekly task. And the guys just have a fantastic time using it. And it's just a great place to actually be, you know. I mean, come and join us. It's always very positive. You know, I'm sharing everything like I'll put when I'm going to be on YouTube and stuff like that. Ben's sharing some real estate stuff he's done. We got rumours in here as well. But yeah, join us on there, guys. It's just so much fun. All right, let's see if anyone else has got any new gear. So Trevor saying the Panda got a Lenovo Y700. That's his laptop that he got. Trevor said new gear Moza Air. The Moza Air, I love the Moza Air Cross. That's my favourite gimbal I've ever had, and I've got a lot of them. I adore that Moza Air Cross. It's fantastic. Heath said new gear Moza Air Cross and Sony 28F2. That Sony 28F2 would be fantastic on a gimbal because it's so nice and wide. I'm dying to try, like you guys know, I've been using the 55 with obviously the Polar Pro the ProMaster, I mean ND. But I want to try and do a video. I think we've been trying to get out to a beautiful waterfall like the other one I did with Kiara. I was meant to go yesterday, but the weather was torrential there, so I never went because it's in a rainforest. So I'm hoping I can go next week because I want to give this 35mm one. The beauty of this is it has the same filter thread as the 55, this ProMaster. So I want to try this on the gimbal next week to see how nicely this works, because I'm really curious to know how it goes. So I'll let you know, and I'll put a video out of that. But I'm dying to try it just to see how it works on the Aircross. But yes, the 28 f2 would be fantastic. It really would be a great lens, particularly on a gimbal. I adore the 55. That's why you've been seeing so much of my video footage with that, and I've put one up recently discussing that where I talked about that alone. The only issue is sometimes I suppose that it's a little bit tight. You know, because it is a 55mm, whereas the 35 might be really nice, and that's why I'm dying to try that lens, and I'll give that a go next week, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I'm sure, Heath, you love the Aircross. It's a great gimbal, and I say that I've purchased that with my own money. Palantir said Jared's passive aggressiveness towards Sony cracks me up. He's a Nikon guy, but admits he uses Sony cameras to film all his videos. Yeah, well, I'll talk about that when we start to go through that in a minute. Any time frame for the a7S III? I'm going to talk about the a7S III in a minute. No said new toys, Xeon Crane 2, lovely. And for my a6-500 and the 18-105. Yeah, I love the 18-105 lens. It's great. That's one of my favorite travel lenses. It really is a beautiful lens. Any other new gear? Mickey Blue Eyes said new gear, new camera bag. I can't pronounce that. Obviously nice. I love camera bags too. I've got a heap of them as well. Lance said new gear is a demo Sony 55. Love it. That's fantastic. Loving it for street photography. Makes some really nice and personal photos. Yeah, it is. It's like I said, that's one of my favorite lenses, that 55. It's so sharp and so quick in focus. I adore it. That's why I'm dying to test that to see how this compares. But I do like shooting. The interesting thing is too, with the A9 and the A7 III, I do love shooting wide open at 1.8. And you never used to be able to do that with video, you know, because it was always going to be hunting and things like that. But I've found, particularly with the 55, how good it actually is in keeping that image in focus at 1.8. And that is just amazing. And that's why I want to try that lens to see how well that works. I have to say though, this lens is really sharp. Kerry loves using this for the wedding photography. It's one of her favourite lenses. 2.8 is still really nice, but it is super sharp. Sometimes I open the images up on this and I go, whoa, what was that shot with? And it's actually this. It is a really sharp lens. Dragon said, hi mate, from Boston, new gear, Peak Design Sling. The 10L, oh that's nice. Ordered Capture Clip V3 and ProPad V2 and Sony Lens Kit. Lovely. So you've bought quite a few things there. The Peak Design sling bags and stuff like that are fantastic, and their straps are really nice as well. I should buy one of those for my RX100 actually. Daniel said new gear. We recently bought the Crane 2 for the Fuji cameras, but it seems to work well with the a7 III. Yes, it will. The Cranes are great gimbals. And they will work fantastic with the a7 III, even with a 24/7 on it, the G Master, they'll work really well. Like I said, personally, I just love the Moser Aircross, but it's all a personal thing. They're all really good gimbals. Sydney Image said, with Canon full frame just around the corner, what's everyone thinking? I'm going to discuss that soon. Is there any new gear, or is that it? Yeah, Daniel said new gear. We got the new Spider 5 Pro screen calibrator. Not very sexy, but necessary. What do I use? I'll show you which one I use. So I'm actually using, just in case if you wonder what I'm doing, I'll show you this. It's fantastic, this thing that I've bought. Check out this thing. Because this actual switcher just works off USB. But these are all the camera lenses that I've actually got on the computer at the moment. These are things like if I want to press Preshow, you'll see that it actually shows Preshow. You've got latest news, new gear, recent shoot, and questions, and then I can clear it by just clicking on this one. These ones down here will switch cameras, so if I click between here, you'll see that it switches the cameras. How amazing is this thing? Like, it's really cool. I really like it. It's nice. Let me just put that back there. Oh, yeah, so I'm going to come back here. So I use this one. So this is my calibration. I've had this for ages, actually. It's the one display, the i1 display. It's an X-Rite color checker one. It works with the X-Rite color checker and other things. So I'm using this as the calibration. That's obviously the part that you flick onto your screen. If you hold it that way, it has an ambient sensor. So you can leave this in your room. Once you've done your calibration, you can leave this into your room on the desk, and it will check ambient light and adjust your monitor depending on the ambient light. So if you switch the lights off, the monitor will dim. If you turn the lights on, or if the sun came through, it will get brighter. So it maintains that consistency all throughout. So yeah, I've had that one for a while, but that's the one that I'm using. But the spider checkers are also very good. As well. Yeah, that's a Spider Pro, yep. Not very sexy, but it is necessary, and everyone should calibrate their screens particularly. What else have we got? Liam said, new gear, a7 III for a long exposure shoot or at slow shutter shoot. What remote do you recommend? Well, I can't remember where was that one? I'll just see if it's here. I bought one recently. I can't find it. I did buy one recently. Let me just check in my storage room. Hang on a sec. Can't find it. It's an intervalometer that I bought. I discussed it before in one of the videos that I actually posted, but I can't remember which one it is. If I find it, and I'll stick it down in the box below. It may even be listed in my, I think it's a Velo. I think it was Velo. Let me just check. Let me just check and see if I can find it for you. Yeah, it was. It's this one. I'll show you which one it is. It's the Shutter Boss. It's this one. So I bought this one. Let me just move that over so you can see. So that's the one that I'm using. And I really like it. Like I said, I haven't really used it fully yet, but I just had to play around with it, but it is really good. But I intend to actually use it and let you know how I go with it. But it seems to work really well. It came with the Sony adapters and everything. So that's the one that I'm using. All right, let me come back here. Everyone will be laughing at my slippers. You can see that I'm wearing slippers. All right, let me come back down to see where we were, and then we'll get started. Otherwise, we're going to be here too long. Oh, Trevor said he sold the Aircross, struggles with bigger cameras. Yeah, you've got to, it works really well. The Aircross, the Moser Aircross works fantastic with this sort of setup, which is my A9 or the A7 III with the 55. It works brilliantly. But I haven't, to be honest, I'm not using it with anything much heavier than that because remember, I'm doing fusion and I don't want to be carrying around really heavy things. If that's the case, yeah, you would need the Moser Air, which is designed to have much more capacity, or the Crane V. The Aircross is the lighter balanced one. Where else are we? Well, I think we might move on anyway because I'm going to be here too long. How long have we been going? 24 minutes. All right, let's get started on anyway. We're going to go through all of the latest news because I think otherwise I'll come back. If you have got a question, if you've posted a question, guys, just repeat it down the bottom down there with @David Oastler, and that way I'll know when we come back to questions later on, because I will leave a fair bit of time for questions at the end. But I've got some really interesting stuff to discuss with you guys. So let's start with news today, because I'm going to go through that with you. So their first serious Sony a7S III spec rumours are starting to come out. And we're looking here that they're saying it's going to be 4K 60p, and I'm certainly hoping it is 4K 60p. And they're also saying it will do HDR video as well. And just if you're looking down here, it's actually saying the rumour is coming via two very old and long-time rumour sources. He said they've been very accurate before, and so that's interesting. He said they actually got the A9 right, the 100-400 right, the 85 and the 100 STF, and the 16-35 GM and the 135 Batis. So obviously they've been pretty good with their rumours previously. But they're saying there's two sources. They're saying source one is saying that it's going to have 4K HDR 60p. The sensor is the XMIRRLess. The number of pixels is unknown. Sony is nervous about information leakage. Obviously, it's keeping it very secret, particularly with what's happening with Canon and Nikon. They wouldn't want this to get out at all. And they're basically saying, but according to the sources, the a7S III is amazing. It is really amazing. Now, that's source one, and I'll have a discussion about this in a minute. Source two is saying that the sensor of the a7S III will be the new stacked CMOS sensor. So they're saying here that it's going to be a similar sensor to the A9, which is really cool, and I'm hoping that's the way they go. Which means the a7S III would have 4K HDR 60p. The sensor is technically superior to the A9 sensor, full-frame sensor. So that is really the way that I'm hoping that this goes, because they really have to be very careful what they release here. The reason why I'm saying that is and I'm going to discuss the Nikon and Canon Mirrorless a little bit later, but if Canon and Nikon produce really good mirrorless cameras at the beginning, and I want to talk about this a fair bit at the end too, but if they do that, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to do it right from the beginning, because like I've said yesterday, I had a quick Q&A late yesterday, that it's taken Sony quite a while to get to the state where they're at with their cameras. You know, it's taken them sort of 3 generations to get up to that point. So it may be hard to do that initially with Nikon and Canon. But they may have basically been reverse engineering and seeing what Sony have done and been working on this for quite a while without releasing anything. So there is a possibility that they could really, you know, pull something out of the hat and produce really good cameras. So I think Sony have to be quite careful with what they announce in this camera, because this is going to be the real high-end type video camera. And therefore, I really think they have to make this really quite strong. And I think that's probably what's going to happen. And I do think the holdup has been the EVF on this camera, and I've discussed that with you before, that they probably want to wait for this new high-def EVF that is going to be coming out later this year. So that's why I still think that this is probably going to be announced at Photokina, and then we'll probably get it mass-produced later this year or early next year. But they may bring it a little bit forward depending on what Nikon actually announce, and I'm not going to go too much in that at the moment, because I want to talk about that when we go through the Nikon mirrorless specs and the Canon specs. But they do have to be fairly careful about what they announce on this one. I'm hoping that they blow everything out of the water here in the fact that I want to buy that camera. And I do hope there's other features in this camera that there is going to be in there that they haven't announced. I would love an internal ND, for instance. That really would be something fantastic in that camera particularly. I think 4K 60p is a given, and I think you're just going to see 4K 60p definitely in that camera. I think they would be just shooting themselves in the foot if they didn't do that. So I think that's definitely going to be in there. And obviously HDR of some sort is also going to be in that camera as well, because if you look at the RX100 Mark 6 now, it's even in there, HLG or whatever they call it, is in there as well. So I think you're going to find that will probably be in there. I am hoping that it's got the A9 focusing. It may even improve on it. So it's going to be interesting because, you know, it's 12 months, over 12 months, nearly a year and a half, I suppose, by the time the A7S III comes out. So if you have a camera that's like the A9, with the amazing focusing of the A9, and you had something like the 4K 60p with the dual cards, obviously, like I said, if it had internal ND, I don't think we're going to see a flip-out screen. Unfortunately, I just don't think Sony are going to do that. I really wish they would. But, you know, you're starting then to sort of see a really amazing camera. If you can get that with the focusing, like I said, I love focusing with the A7 III and the A9. I still honestly believe, and I discussed this the other day, that the A9 at the moment still has the best video. Now, I noticed someone put up a video this morning. I can't remember who it was. I haven't watched it yet. Just let me find out, because I'll just tell you exactly who it was, because you may want to actually look at it. Yeah, it's Jeff Remus. I watch him too, he's an American as well. Jeff Remus said, uploaded no more Super 35 video with the A7R III, and that's probably backs up. I haven't watched that video yet, but that will back up what I've found. With the A7 III, the A7R III, those cameras definitely don't do Super 35 as well as they do full frame. That there is a hit, there's a penalty hit in noise. They're nowhere near as good if you're dealing with low light in Super 35 as they are with full frame. Well, I can tell you the only camera that doesn't have that problem at all is the A9. The A9 is exactly the same Super 35 as it is with full frame. So it's the only camera at this stage where you can do what it does with shooting Super 35 or full frame without any penalty at all in ISO performance or anything like that. And I've also found, to be honest, it's still the sharpest camera that I've got for video. But it doesn't have the log profiles, not that I shoot with them anyway, but it doesn't have those. So if you're a full-on videographer, that's missing. So if they get those features and they put them inside an A7S III, I can just imagine how amazing that camera is going to be, where there's no penalty between shooting Super 35 or shooting full frame. Amazing autofocus, like really amazing autofocus. The ISO on those cameras for shooting video is nuts. That's on the A7 III and the A9. It is nuts. Far more than what I would ever need. So I can just imagine what we're going to get with the A7S III. It's going to be groundbreaking. So I'm excited. I really am excited about what Sony are going to announce on this, and I'm really just looking forward to when it comes out. I really can't wait. But I just wanted to have a discussion with you about that, because it still only is, you know, talking about rumours at this stage. But it's still very interesting. Like I said to you, I still believe it's going to be photokina before we get any information about this at all. And then, like I said, I still think it's going to be in production, possibly the earliest later this year, because they'll be waiting for that new EVF. I think Sony will be, I think they're jumping the gun a little bit if they release the A7 III without that new EVF in it. I think it would be silly to release their highest end mirrorless camera that's designed specifically for video, where you will be doing manual focus and things like that, and not put that better EVF in there. I can tell you definitely the EVF in the A9 and the A7R III is much better than the A7 III if you're doing manual focus. That's one thing. But remember, they had to cut costs on the A7 III because you know, you're dealing with $2,000 US. Naturally, they can't give you everything that their higher end models have. So the EVF is much nicer in the A9 or the A7R III. And then the new one, I think, is about 2.5 or 3 times better than what those cameras have. So I can just imagine how good that new EVF is actually going to be. And for something like the A7S III, it's going to be amazing. And that's why I really can't wait for that camera. But let us know in the questions here, and we'll come back to it during question time, to what you think about that. Because I really would be interested to know what you guys think about that as well. A couple of things that I don't think they will have, though. I definitely don't think it will have the fold-out screen. I don't think we're going to get that. We may get that, hopefully, in an A6700. So let's go to the next story. So the next story is the Tamron. Let me just mark this down on the time, 31. Oh, I'll just go through it. It's a Tamron have released their updated fix. I did post about this yesterday. It was going to be released at 7 AM, I think, London time. So they have released the firmware, and I have sort of been looking around on the chats, and it has been fixing some of the issues that they said were there. It's still a bit early yet though, so I'm dying for some people. Let me know in the chat whether some of you who have got an issue with a Tamron have upgraded it. Now, if you're not in the chat with one where you've tried to upgrade it, please comment down below, because I'd love to know there whether it's fixed the issues that they were having with the focus in video. But they're saying it's fixing the autofocus operation and loss of focus. And it's also saying flicker on peripheral parts of the image when zooming. I never saw any of those issues. Lucky I had a good lens. It's interesting that Danny just sent his back. It would have been interesting to see if it fixed Danny's lens that he had. He just sent it back the other day and then they dropped the firmware update. It's quite funny. But let me know whether you think it has done that. I just quickly went through the comments and some people have said it has fixed it. I've also had a couple of comments put on my YouTube channel about that they were having issues loading the driver on Mac. And I can tell people that if you do not follow the instructions completely on a Macintosh, it won't work. The driver loader is the critical thing that you've got to actually install correctly. If you don't load that driver and follow the instructions, the whole thing won't work. It won't see the camera. So you've basically got to follow it letter by letter to get it to work. And if you do that, it works first time. So if you are having issues, make sure you're following that instruction completely. It's something to do with the way you've got to load the driver, the loader, and then you actually have to leave it there without saying OK. Then you connect your camera, and then you connect OK, and then it works. You've just got to follow that process perfectly, and if you do it, it will work. But I noticed some people were having that. The good thing about this update, it is directly through the camera, just like having a Sony firmware update. So it's nice and easy. You don't have to send the lens off like the Samyang lenses. So this is really great. So it's great that Sony and Tamron have had that relationship, that they're allowing that to happen. So that's a fantastic thing. So hopefully, anyway, this has fixed it. Now, clearly, any new lenses that now will be shipping will obviously have that firmware update done on them. That's probably also why they've been so hard to get. It may be that they've held the lenses back waiting for this fix. Anyway, interesting. So let me know in the chat anyway if any of you have had any of those issues and whether that's fixed it. Really appreciate a like too, guys, if you can. It just lets people know I'm online, so please, if you can. So anyway, like I said to you before, I adored this lens. I certainly am thinking about getting it, and I will get it sooner or later down the track. I'll probably just wait now till it's in stock and then go and buy it. My reasoning is that I'd like to use it with the Moser Aircross for wedding videos. That's the reason why I think I like that. Look, I love the 55, but I would love to have that 28 to 75 so I can just zoom in and out or do whatever I want to do. And that's why I'm thinking that I probably will buy this for the Moser Aircross for my wedding fusion work. And then I can zoom up to that 75mm if I need to. The other big advantage is that it's got that macro inbuilt in the lens as well. I mean, it's such a useful lens because the range that you can go from being close to almost macro to 78mm is amazing, you know, and then you use clear image zoom and you can get up to, you know, 150, you know, nearly 180 or whatever it is, millimeters. So it really is a fantastic lens. It's nice and light, so again, it's going to be great for doing that fusion type work. But you know, just brilliant, and I really can't wait to get that for my wedding work. Now, my weddings don't start up again. I've got one next month, but they don't really start up again now until September, October. Hopefully by then they'll be in stock, and I'll go and buy one for my wedding work. But that's the way I'm thinking. I mean, what a great lens to be able to do, say, do flowers, you know, the bride's bouquet, the wedding rings and stuff like that, because you can get really close with that lens. It's almost one-to-one. Like, it's amazing. Well, not one-to-one, but it's pretty close. I was amazed when I did that shoot with Kiara at the Werribee Mansion and how close I could get to the rose, and it was filling the frame, and it looked beautiful. So it's a very interesting lens with a great range of features, like much better, I think, than the 24-70 for me for doing video, because I can have that macro effect as well. And I do like that extra reach as well. So anyway, that's what I'm thinking about that. So let me know anyway whether you've had the fix, whether it's worked for you, because I really would be interested to know how that's been. Hopefully that has solved it. Clearly, if you do the upgrade to the Tamron lens and it doesn't fix it, well, then you'd have to now return it because it would be a hardware issue. But hopefully that's fixed all those issues that were out there. Anyway, good on Tamron. They've put out a fix for it. They said they would. It took a bit longer than I expected, but at least they've done it. So let's go on to the next news item. Keep firing away questions, guys, because I will come back later on. Just make sure that if you are asking questions, make sure you put on there like the @DavidOastler. You don't have to, but it just means I won't miss your question. So please do that if you can. I noticed that RX100, this was a surprise announcement, that Japan announced an RX100Va. So they've actually released another camera. It's the same as what I've got, except for, I believe that they've put a bigger buffer. They're saying this is basically the RX100V, update with bigger frame rate, updated processor engine, improved autofocus, and other improvements also seen on the new RX100V1 or 6. And I think there's just a slight button change on the back. You can see there that it's actually just a slight button change down here. Apart from that, they're identical. And this is really interesting, but apparently you can only get this in Japan, so I'm not sure whether this is going to be released anywhere else. It's a pity that I think Play Memories apps have also gone on this though. So again, Sony is stopping you doing the cracks. Now, if you could use Play Memories hacks, you could probably buy the Japanese one, use the Play Memories hacks, and then change the language in the camera. So it's a pity that they've taken that off. It looks like they're not, at this stage, it looks like it's not going to be released anywhere other than Japan at this stage. But I think this is quite interesting because it sort of backs up what I said early on. When I bought my RX100V, I was sort of tossing whether to take it back and get the new version 6. But there was a few things that I didn't like about the version 6, which was missing the 1.8 aperture and also missing the ND particularly, and also the apps, because I wanted to put time-lapse. If I'm taking that for travel, I really wanted to have the inbuilt time-lapse apps on there. And, you know, you've got the gradation apps inside there as well that I use. So I really didn't want to use those, lose them. And that's the reason why I decided to keep the Mark V. But it's interesting how they've updated the Mark V with the new features basically that the Mark VI has, apart from the longer zoom, because it's quite interesting that I think these two cameras are going to be sold side by side, because some people that want low light type work like I do, being able to use this indoors, you really do want the 1.8 aperture. So I do think Sony are going to keep marketing these sort of side by side as new cameras. I know they're still selling their other ones, but I think they're going to probably sell these side by side as new cameras, and that sort of backs up what I was thinking about that as well. So let me know what you think about that as well. This next page is talking about this German website I noticed. Now, this is a German, I can't pronounce the name, but it's basically a neutral review platform. So they're neutral in all of their platforms that they review for photography. But the interesting thing is, and this is where it's amazing, they've ranked Sony cameras as their top 3 cameras. They announced the a7 III with 1.5 points. I'm not going to go through it. I'll put the links down below so you can go through this yourselves. They announced the a7R III with 1.6 points, and the Sony A99 II with 1.7 points. And the closest camera you came was Nikon D850, was 1.8. Then it was Pentax, and then Canon was down at 7 and 8. So how interesting is that? That they've labelled the Sony a7 III particularly as the #1 camera, and that's backed up by everything I keep saying. When you watch, you know, the Angry Photographer, and he's bagging the a7 III so much, because I suppose he feels like he has to because he's promoting Fuji. You know, I mean, it just doesn't make sense when you're seeing everyone else talking about how fantastic that camera is. And I've said before that I think the a7 III is the best all-round camera that's actually available on the market today, by far. There's nothing even comes close to it. Nothing. If you're dealing with 4K video, if you're dealing with focusing, you've got all the profiles built into there, you've got the 5-axis stabilization, you've got your dual card slots. Honestly, what more can you really want than what that camera has? You know, and it sort of backs up everything that I've said all along, that is probably the best all-round camera, particularly if you look at the price that camera's coming in at. And that site is sort of backing that up as well. So let me know what you think about that too. And we'll go on to the next story. Next story is Nikon Mirrorless. So I want to start talking to you about that. We're going to go through a couple of different ones. We'll look at the Nikon first, and then we'll have a look at the Canon version, or what the latest rumours they're talking about with Canon, because it's actually quite interesting. So Nikon basically there's a couple of rumours. This is Nikon rumours site that's come out, I think this morning actually. It was posted July the 4th, no, a couple of days ago I think. Now, it's saying in here that they believe that the Nikon Mirrorless is going to have two versions. And I noticed Canon is also saying that they're going to have two versions of that lens as well. So let's have a look at this. So they're saying, I mean, these are obviously pictures that you know, around the mock-ups or something. But, oh no, they might be the other Nikon that have already been announced. Anyway, what they're saying here is that they're going to have these are leaked specifications and slightly different. There's two models, basically, they're saying that are going to be announced. So if you're looking at their technical specifications of what they're saying that these two cameras are going to actually have, they're saying two different mirrorless full-frame cameras. They're going to have resolution of between 24 to 25 megapixels. That's one camera. The second camera is going to have 45 to 48 megapixels. Similar body size to the Sony a7 cameras that are out there. It's going to have 9 frames per second with 4K video. And memory cards is going to be QXD and CF Express. I'm not sure if I really like that, but anyway. EVF resolution is going to be 3.6 million dots, so it's pretty good. Nikon is putting a lot of emphasis and effort into the shooting experience of these new mirrorless cameras. The camera is designed with ergonomics in mind, so they're saying they're actually going to try and make it fairly ergonomically in holding. So they may go down the Fuji sort of line with the way that these cameras are actually manufactured. And that's going to be the interesting thing, is to see how these look. Are they going to go more down the Fuji line with very tactile type controls and things like that? You know, like the DF, they may go down that sort of line with things. And I do quite like that, to be honest. I do love those tactile controls of like what Fuji have. And that's the other reason why I love the A9 so much, you know, just to get that, the extra dial. You know, I really do like getting the extra dial on there, because it does make a big difference that I can control the AFC and AFS from here. And then I can shoot where the drive mode's on the top and bracketing and things like that. It's just nice to have all that here rather than have to go through menus. So I do like that. So, you know, if Nikon came out with a really good design camera for ergonomics like what Fuji have, that could be a fantastic thing. And they're saying that's probably what they're going to aim at doing. And it's saying further down here, though, that initially the 3 lenses will be announced. So they're saying they're going to have a 24-70 f4, a 35mm and a 50mm. And I think the 35 and 50 will be 1.4. So that's fairly good, isn't it? That if they're releasing those lenses at 1.4, that's going to be great. There is also talk about a 24mm, but it may come a little bit later. And remember, they're going to have to catch up. It's going to take a while to actually catch up on these. And they're saying that at least one new mirrorless zoom lens will have power zoom for video. So that's probably a good thing as well, that they're releasing a power zoom, something like the you know, the 18-105, like the Sonys have. And also 2 electric AF motors not confirmed. Very sophisticated new F-mount adapter. So this is going to be the interesting part. So that if they don't get this right, they're going to be hurt. So if they don't get this mirrorless adapter so they can use their existing lenses, and they don't focus like the normal native lenses or very close to that, they're going to be pretty well hurt. So this is going to be interesting to see what they have. But they're saying it's a very sophisticated new F-mount adapter confirmed by multiple sources. And I was told that Nikon are currently developing a large number of new mirrorless lenses, and this is a top priority. And the new mirrorless mount will allow for 0.95 lenses. And the comparison with the second one, let me just come down here. They're actually saying in here that the pricing, this is just, I suppose, rumor pricing, But the 45 megapixel Nikon mirrorless cameras with the 24/7 f4 lens will be priced around $4,000 or €4,000. The Sony a7R III with the 24/70 f4 lens is now $3,896. But currently $500 off. So looking at that, they're saying that the pricing is going to be on parity with the a7R III with their 24/70 f4 lens. So that gives you a comparison about pricing that's sort of announced there. The 24 megapixel Nikon mirrorless camera with the 24/70 f4 will be priced around $2,900. The Sony a7 Mark III with the 24/7 is $2,800. So it's almost exactly the same prices. Now this is the interesting thing. So they are pricing themselves basically the same as what Sony are. They are saying that the official announcement is rumoured to be the end of July. So that's only a couple of weeks away, around July the 23rd. And shipping in early August. So obviously if this is true, Nikon have really upped the ante against Canon. Because Canon is still saying next year, and I'll bring up Canon in a second and we can discuss that. But this is really quite interesting that they're saying that these cameras will be announced on July the 23rd and shipping early August. So, yeah, I mean, wow. Really interesting. Let me know in the comments about that. But let's compare this to the Canon. So Canon also, they're saying in here that Canon has 2 full-frame mirrorless cameras in the works as well. So not only has Nikon got 2, Canon also has 2. It's saying that they're launching on 2 different full-frame mirrorless cameras in the very near future. That Canon will have 2 releases of mirrorless cameras before the middle of 2019. I reckon that's too late for Canon. They really need to bring this forward, particularly if Nikon are releasing their cameras August. They're almost going to have a year on Canon. I think that's really bad for Canon. It really is bad. The first announcement will be a 30.4 megapixel mirrorless camera. That could be closely related to the sensor found in the existing Canon 5D Mark 1V. And I don't know if that's a really good thing, but we'll have a discussion about that in a minute. But they're saying it's probably about the same as the 5D Mark 1V. And clearly that sensor's not as good as what the a7 III is. So I don't know if that's a really good thing. If you're waiting 12 months and you're going to get a sensor that's the same as the 5D Mark 1V, well, I don't know. Canon said back in May that it's finally willing to cannibalise its digital SLRs to play a bigger part in the growth of the mirrorless cameras. Well, whoopie-doo, about time, Canon. Honestly, it's ridiculous. They're saying the second Canon full-frame mirrorless body launched afterward will probably be a lower pixel count, possibly 24. So they're going to release the higher megapixel one first, and then they're going to release the lower megapixel one first. To be honest, I think that should be the other way around. If you're going after mass market, I'd be going for that one first, the 24 one first before the high res one, but that's just me. Look how the a7 III is selling. It says Canon doesn't currently have plans to jump into that niche of beating the A7S, because they're saying here that the camera will not compete directly with the ISO performance against the A7S II. Now they're saying 2. God knows what the A7S III is going to be. A 12 megapixel light monster. That Canon doesn't currently have plans to jump into that niche. So in other words, they're not planning to target the Sony video shooters at the end. And I, again, think that this might be protecting their high-end digital SLRs. And if that's what they're going to do, I think they've missed the boat again. And we'll have a chat about this in the live chat. But, you know, to be honest, I think that's a silly move by Canon, is to, obviously, it sounds to me, reading these rumours, that they're holding back again. And I don't really understand that. They should really be going after the A7S III or whatever is announced, and really giving us some amazing video camera that they can produce. They're saying that they don't want to compete in that space, and I think that's a bit silly. It's saying both cameras will reportedly shoot 4K video, but the flagship camera will be more formidable camera on the video front. And they're also saying it's currently unclear what lens mount Canon will be using in its mirrorless line, but Canon says the murmurings that Canon has developed a new sexy solution. What that means, I'm not sure. That they can use their EF lenses, and both cameras are expected to start shipping the middle of 2019. Wow, that was a lot to get through. But, you know, I want to have a discussion about this because this is really important. Before I open it up to all questions, let's discuss this, because I really think, like I said, if you watch that Jaron Poland video, I haven't watched that yet, but clearly I know what it's going to be about. He's going to be talking about the changing market in the next 2 to 3 months or whatever with Nikon and Canon coming into this marketplace and how it's going to change the whole thing. You know, like, will Sony start probably to suffer because Canon and Nikon come in? Well, I think it seems to me, reading what I've just read to you a minute ago, that Nikon are pretty well switched on. At least they're now starting to move forward. They're going to release 2 cameras basically around the same time, I think, reading those specs that I mentioned before. And they're going to be coming out possibly in August. Now, that's going to be 12 months basically before Canon have even announced their new lens, which also means that Nikon will have that camera out for 12 months and basically in use, and then in 12 months' time when Canon finally announce their lenses or release their lenses, Nikon are going to be in version 2 of those cameras, therefore probably will be more ahead. Now, I don't understand why Canon are taking so long to do this, and trust me, I do honestly say this the truth, that I really want Nikon and Canon to survive in this marketplace and do really well. Because I honestly believe, and someone said I say honestly the other day heaps, I really believe that for Sony to innovate and produce really great things, we have to have competition. And we really do need that. So if Nikon release a very good mirrorless camera in August, Sony are also going to have to sort of up their ante and start producing, you know, great cameras as well. It's really going to put pressure on Canon, though, being 12 months behind the ball game against Nikon. And I can't understand that, because they should have been on this way ages ago, the same time that Nikon have come out. Why can Nikon produce a camera basically where they're saying it's going to be announced in 2 or 3 weeks and actually released in August? How can they get that and Canon are still saying the middle of next year? Come on, Canon, seriously, what? That is just nuts. I mean, if I was shooting Canon, I would be that pissed off that I'd say I've had enough. I can't go on hearsay. I'm either jumping to Nikon or I'm going to jump to Sony and just see what happens, because waiting another 12 months is ridiculous. I mean, seriously. That is ridiculous, and I really don't understand how Nikon can say they're going to bring this out. Now, what will Nikon's camera be like? Now, look, no one knows, and this is the thing, we're going to have to wait to see. I hope it's a really great release. They may pull, like I said before, a rabbit out of the hat and produce something that is really amazing, and I hope that's true, because if they do, it's really going to put some pressure on Sony, because Sony really have had this market to themselves, the full frame I'm talking about. I'm not talking about APS-C where you've got Fuji and everyone else. I'm talking about full frame with video. So if Nikon can produce something amazing here, it may even be something that I would be willing to have a look at. You know, and this is the great thing about all this stuff, you know, that we've got so much choice when people start to come in, and I'm really excited about where it's going to go. Obviously, I think Canon particularly will probably have the advantage in focus, because they already do amazing focus now. So if they bring that technology over, it's going to be a great focusing camera. But it worries me in the fact that that rumor just said that they're not going to compete against the A7S II, which the A7S II is an old camera. That's a couple of years old now. Like, if they're not even going to compete with that, and they're saying that their sensor's going to be designed on the 5D Mark IV, I'm a bit worried about that. That really does worry me if they're talking that it's not going to have the high ISO of what the Sony cameras have. And I can tell you that the Nikon probably will have great ISO, because more than likely they're probably going to use Sony sensors in those cameras, just the same as the D850 has now been proven that it's a Sony sensor. Yes, it was designed by Nikon, but it's still a Sony sensor. So I'm a little bit worried about Canon, their direction where they're going here. So let me know in the chat. But let's opening it up to some questions, because I'd really love to know what you guys have been thinking today. How are we going for time? So we'll do about 15-10 minutes on this. It's been a long show today. Where else are we? Let's come down. I'm going to scroll to questions. Mike said, I picked up another A6000, still a lovely camera, 1.8 50 OSS to always have me whenever I go and don't want to take the A7 III or the A6 500 with you. Yep, great idea. That's why I bought that RX100, just so I can take it with me everywhere. Mike said he also ordered, oh, thank you so much, Daniel, really appreciate that. Daniel said, any recommendations on a TTL flash for Sony A7 III? All the Godox ones are really nice, Daniel. Let me just bring up... I'll tell you which ones I think will be nice. Are you talking about speed lights? Or are you talking about something like the AD200? I mean, to be honest, if you had the money, I'd go for something like the... Is it called? It's the AD200 is great because it's sort of a mix between a speed light and more of a high-end strobe. To be honest, I like the big ones more because they've got more power to overpower the sun. I mean, you can, if you wanted to go for, you know, some of these Godox, like this TTL 685S, is a TTL flash, and they're really nicely priced if you wanted to go for something, you know, around there. You obviously need your receiver as well. There's also this one over here, which is the TT350S, but to be honest, I would go for something like a AD200. Let me just bring one of those up. I'd be using something like this. That's the way that I would go if you want to get something that's reasonably nicely powerful. You know, it's a lot more power than using just your single speed light, and it's also nice and small. So that's what I'd recommend for you to go if you were just getting in now. That's a great setup. Also does TTL and everything as well. So let me come back to where we were. Had to answer that because it was a donation. Oh, Vantlin's talking about he'll buy the link. Thank you so much. Yes, that link is in my... If you go to my link down below, you'll be able to get to that intervalometer. That's what he's talking about there. CG's just say morning. The Panda said, something's telling me it's going to have a 24, 45 megapixel sensor. That's the Nikon ones, yes. We've just discussed that. Lance said, quick drinking coffee. I love coffee, and it's too late in the day here. That's funny. I love it. I've got to bring up the chat. That's quite funny, Lance. I'm going to go for another coffee in a minute, actually. I'll go for my morning latte. Ario said, I don't think I will buy the S3. I have no limit 4K recorder with the S2. Yep. And that's still a great camera. And for gimbal work, my A7 III is enough. 4K 60p is nice, but not vital for me. I'd rather put the money in an A9. Yeah, and if you're shooting basically more stills, I can understand that completely, Oreo. Gerald said, I got my Sigma 70 2.8 macro. That's the Sigma, yep. We'll do some shoots and post to the Facebook group. Seems really solid and very sharp and quick focusing. Great, can't wait to see that, Gerald. Looking forward to it. Just to let you know, I have had a meeting with the Sigma rep here. And it looks like it's going to be quite fruitful with actually reviewing a number of different gear as well, like Photo as well, and bags and tripods and things like that. So I might have some really good stuff coming for you in the future. I'm just not sure how long it's going to all take to come together. But I'm hoping that I'll be able to get my hands on the Sigma 105 and the 135. So that's pretty exciting if that can happen. Trevor said the biggest change will be adding hybrid phase detect autofocus. By that I mean slightly higher pixel count. Is that talking about the Nikon cameras, Trevor? Trevor said, I use my A7R II for Super 35 video. It's beautiful, yeah, but there's definitely a hit in it. The A9 particularly has stunning video, full frame, and Super 35. Just had another donation. Just let me check that there was no question with that. Oh, thank you. Van said, for being really nice guy for follows. Thank you so much, Van. Really appreciate that. Where are we up to? Gerald said, oh no, that's all right. Alvaro said, I was not able to update with the firmware. I'm on a Mac with 10.5. Notes say 10.2 is supported. Maybe that's why I couldn't update. Please update if it works for you. Just make sure, Alvaro, that you are following those instructions completely, because if you don't follow those instructions completely, the update won't work. And that's really important, that you have to follow those updates for the driver loader dead on. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Little Blu-ray said also, Little Ray Blue said he's having the same problem. I saw no driver loader on the file download from Tamron. No, you won't get it. You probably have to go for the firmware update, Little Ray Blue. You've got to go there to actually upload it like you're updating the firmware. Download the driver. That driver loader will be there. That's what you have to use first before you install the firmware update for the lens. Mario said, how many weddings have you had? Is that a joke among wedding photographers? I don't understand what you mean by that, Mario. Video Master, love you, brother. Thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate that. I think I've just had another donation. Let me just check. Daniel said, more photography said, have another stubby on me, fella. Appreciate your help. Looking forward to hanging out with you in Facebook group. Any videos on how to shoot Fusion? I'll be doing one of those when I get the time, actually, Daniel. I do want to do that, and I want to have a discussion about that. I've taken some shots to show how it works, so I will be doing that eventually too. What I might try and do when wedding season actually starts up later this year, I might see if I can get someone to come along and video me in it and then post it like that, so you'll see me actually doing a full wedding video. So that could be something really interesting for you to actually follow to see how I do Fusion, because no one really does that. And I might show you how that works. You know, mic myself up and talk through the process, do all that sort of stuff. But you're going to have to wait till late in the year for that to happen when weddings start up again. Tony Pierce said, get the driver loader from the Mac from the Sony support site. Yes, you've got to go basically to the firmware updates, and then it will work. Gerald said, any thoughts on Jared Poland's take on the upcoming Nikon and Canon? Do you agree with his predictions or no comment? I haven't watched it yet, Gerald. I haven't had time, but basically I can probably imagine what it would be about. Look, I don't think Sony have anything to worry about. Competition is good for everyone. And clearly, remember, Sony are also in advantage as well, that they have things like the sensor manufacturing that they have there, so they have that side of it. Their latest cameras are really unbelievable. Like the a7 III, the a7R3 and the A9 are incredible. And just wait till you see what the a7R3, a7S3 probably has when it comes out. So I don't think Sony have anything to worry about. Some things that I think Sony have to address though, and I might talk about this in a separate video, but they do have to start looking after people a little bit more with firmware. They have to get more like Fuji, I believe, and give you some nice features instead of forcing you to get a new camera all the time. And they're starting to hold little things back like the Play Memories apps and things like that, the intervalometer. They're going to have to increase those sort of things. And I think having competition may help there. So competition may be a good thing for all of us. But like everyone, you know, like I said, I haven't seen that video yet, Jared's. But if he is starting to say that Sony may be in trouble, I think that's really premature. If that's what he's saying, I'll probably comment on it when I actually view it to sort of discuss that. But I think it's a great thing for all of us. The market's big enough for all of us. Let me know, Gerald, you've seen the video, so let me know in the comments down below what he said, and then I might be able to have a bit of a discussion on it. Trevor said, the a7 III is a nicely balanced camera. It's not the best photo camera or the best video, but it does both well enough to edge out every other camera in its class, and it certainly is. But I'd honestly say, Trevor, it's an amazing still camera. I love it. It really is an amazing still and video camera. Trevor said, XQD, seriously hope not. So do I. They're expensive, those things. I used to have that when I had my D4S, the Nikon D4S, and it was a pain. I mean, yes, it's nice and quick, but if you're only dealing with 9 frames per second, why do you need XQD? You don't need it. Michael said, G'day, Michael. Good to see you in here. Crazy Newt said, Canon skimping out again, protecting their C video range. Yes, and this is what I'm worried about with Canon. If Canon do this, they are stupid. If they protect their C range of cameras and hold back on their mirrorless, they are nuts. They seriously, I'll be that angry, you know, and I'll have to bring back the happy photographer to get over it. Seriously, if Canon hold back again, and that's what worried me when I read you those articles about that Canon camera. I think there was hints there that they're going to hold back again. Well, the only people that are going to laugh about that are going to be Nikon and Sony, because if Canon do that, they're going to fail, and they'll fail miserably. They would be stupid to do that, especially if you're talking about having a camera that's going to come out the middle of next year. Oh, that would be silly. I hope Canon don't do it. I really hope they don't do it. Michael's just saying hi. Hi, Michael. Oreo said, if the timing and sensor leaks are correct, Canon is screwed. Yeah, I don't understand that timeline, Oreo. I really don't understand them saying the middle of next year when Nikon are talking about releasing it next month. In August, I mean. Yeah, next month. I mean, that's just crazy. Nikon are going to have 12 months on Canon in mirrorless. That is nuts. Now, you're dealing with... Canon can't go on at Nikon about not having lenses and things like that. They can't go on about them like that. So, you know, if they're going to play that game, they're going to fail. It's just silly. I don't understand, honestly, why they would do that. Creative Films just saying, what's up, Peak? Showerverse said, love your shows, David. Thank you so much for watching. What site did you find all the rumours from? I'll put the links down below in a minute. Canon rumours and Nikon rumours I was looking at for that. Creative Film said the A7S III will be a beast. Yeah, I think it probably will be. Michelle said 4K Nikon Mirrorless. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if that's the price that it actually comes out. But I suppose if you compare it to the A7R III, it looks like they're going to be similarly priced, Michelle. So don't discount that pricing out yet. Mick said Canon won't compete with the low-light A7S version because their sensor cannot compete at this time with the higher ISOs. Yeah, and that's one issue. They need to upgrade their sensor, that's for sure. Creative Film says Canon is always behind. Oh, yeah, Mills said he thought it was just for the body. Yep. Aaron's just saying hello. Little Ray Blue said, I wanted the A7 III to have the stacked sensor, maybe the A6-700. Maybe. We're still waiting on that. That could drop at any time, basically. You know, you never know when they're going to drop that camera. Crazy Newt said, Nikon have amazing engineers, just the management holds them back. Yeah, I'm really hoping, though, that they've changed. Perhaps they are going to change their thinking. And I really do want Nikon to do well. I have a bit of a soft spot for Nikon because I came from Nikon. So I really did like their stuff. Crazy Newts, oh, they've already read that. Delta Dave said, just because Nikon releases a camera doesn't mean anybody will be able to get one. And that's true. Look how much trouble they've had getting the D850. See, this is the other thing too, that you still can't get a D850. How long ago was that camera released? I mean, seriously, those things hurt manufacturers. You just can't do that. I know Sony are having issues with the A7 III, but that camera was only released a couple of months ago. When you're dealing with the D850, how long ago was that released? I mean, it's probably 12 months. You know, and they still can't get them in stock. That is nuts. What else have we got? I think it's Wilt You Duck, I think. As a Nikon shooter, I'm easily willing to wait for Nikon Mirrorless. That's competitive. The D850 is on another and love it. Yeah, it is. The D850 is a great camera, and I agree with you. It is a great camera. If they can put that sort of performance into a mirrorless, Nikon will be on a winner, and I hope that happens. Thank you, Daniel, for the donation. Hope I answered the question okay for you. Trevor said there's nothing at all wrong with Sony phase detect autofocus. After another generation or two, they will be equivalent to PDAF. Canon better stop taking that for granted. Yeah, and you know what? I reckon they're pretty close now. I honestly think the A9 and the A7 III are pretty close to Canon focus. That's for sure. It also said, Crazy Newt said, Nikon have been holding back products on products to get their mirrorless out as soon as possible, perhaps. That could be the case. Mario said, are you going Nikon on us? Oh my God, the world is going to come to an end. What are we going to do now, Mummy? No, I'm not going to go Nikon. Look, I've spent too much on Sony to move over at the moment, but I wouldn't mind to have a look at one if it's really great. Imagine if Nikon brought out a camera, one of their mirrorless cameras, and it has an articulating screen, and Sony don't bring out a camera with an articulating screen. Interesting. Daniel Moore said, yeah, speedlight for dance floor stuff mostly. Thanks for your help, make great videos. No worries. Thank you, Daniel. Delta Dave said, creating legions of dissatisfied customers, great business model. He's talking about Canon, I think. Michael said, what's the deal on the firmware update on the Tamron, or did you talk about it already? Yeah, we discussed that, Michael. Dragon said, I don't use flash much, but I got 2 Godox D862Ss and a Godox transmitter. Yep, nice flash. Where were we? Robert said, yes, Michael. David already talked about Tamron. Yep. Then Van gave me a donation. Thank you so much, Van. And then Dragon said also William Fong on Facebook. That's fantastic for letting me know. Rue said, sorry you're late. Well, at least you got here. Daniel also gave me a donation. Thank you so much, Daniel. Another stubby on me, fella. Alvaro said, hi, I'm trying again. I'm also trying with the driver from Sony site. So far, no luck. Make sure you follow those instructions, though. If you don't follow it, it won't work. You have to follow it. Read it letter by letter. Gene said, I'm running Mac OS 13.5 and I was unable to update the Tamron firmware. I had to use a driver loader from the Sony site for the camera firmware update. Gerald said, if you were still a Nikon shooter with a host of lenses, would you use the new Nikon Mirrorless if you need an adapter for your present lenses or needed to buy new lenses? Well, I probably would, but it would have to work well, Gerald. That's the thing. I mean, if they've developed this mirrorless adapter to use the old Nikon lenses or the other Nikon lenses, and it works as good as using the mirrorless lenses, yeah, I would. That wouldn't bother me at all. But will that work? That I'm not 100% sure of. Mario said, how many weddings have you had? How many times have you been married? Sorry, my English is my first language. Well, I've only been married once. Yeah, I've only had one married once, if that's what you're asking me, Mario. Yep, so yeah, I've only ever been married to Kerry, luckily. We were kids when we got together. She was 15. I was 18, I think. So we've been together since we were kids. Delta Dave said, why would... Now, if you're talking about how many weddings have I photographed, too many to count. Delta Dave said, why would mirrorless yields be any different than their D850 yields? Well, that's going to be interesting to see, isn't it? Mike said, any plans on coming over here for Photokina? No, I'd love to, Mike. I would love to. Perhaps next year. It would be fantastic. I'd love to pop over there for that. Daniel said, I'd be happy for you to fly me over to shoot the behind the scenes for the fusion shooting. Just needs a regular supply of beer. So Studio 96 said, Nikon Austria told me they are very nervous about the Sony a7S III. I bet they are. And no camera until spring 2019. Oh. So are you saying that they're saying no camera now until... Well, that's interesting, isn't it? So that matches up with what Canon are also saying, Studio Vienna. I was surprised looking at that they said on there that it's going to be August. I can't see that either. Yeah. Is it saying... Let me just go back. It is saying this year, isn't it? Yeah. I'm just checking here that it's actually saying it is this year. Yeah, it's interesting. So that's... I'm not sure how that comes about. That's what shocked me. I was quite surprised when they said it was going to be this year. Okay. So you're saying spring 2019. Oreo said, Sony needs to get rid of that horrible hot shoe. Yeah, it is the weak spot of the camera, that's for sure, Oreo. I've still got to send my A9 in to get fixed. I must get around to doing that. I just hate losing the cameras. What else have we got? Kevin's just saying hi. Hi, Kevin. Casper saying Sony, Sony, Sony. Dominic said, Jared's video mostly says that mirrorless is the future and it's about time that Nikon and Canon jump on board. No talk of Sony being in trouble. Okay. Oh, that's good then. Well, it's true, isn't it? I mean, it's true what he's saying. It is definitely the future. Hopefully Sony will lower the cost of their lenses, and that's another thing that I hope these cameras do so well at, because if they do, it might bring the Sony G Master lenses and all their lens prices down. That would be fantastic. Gerald said, Jared thinks the new Nikon will stop Nikon folks from switching to Sony and will change the playing field for Sony. He says that millions of Nikon and Canon lenses out there are the advantage. Well, I don't know if that's true. People just coming into the marketplace don't care about Nikon having all of these lenses. Sony have more than enough lenses now for what you'd ever need. So I think that lens argument now is just no longer relevant. Like I said, what more lenses do you need on Sony than what they've got, apart from if you're dealing with shooting landscape, wildlife or something like that? You know, really, I don't think it does. But it probably will stop switches. Yes, it might. But I think new people coming into the marketplace, it'll be interesting to see what they buy, whether they buy Sony or whether they would buy Nikon that don't have anything in the marketplace at all. But they do have to do it, yes, and it probably would stop people switching if the system's good. Trevor said 12 months leading technology is like 3 years in the real world. That would be a huge mistake on Canon. Yep. Gene said it's going to be funny when the Nikon and Canon fans that have been bagging Sony for lack of lenses and new Nikon gear have mirrorless. Yeah, I know, with less lenses. I know it is going to be interesting, isn't it? Daniel said, David, what chair are you using? Looks super comfortable. It is. It's great. Let me show you full on so you can see it. It's great. It is. It's a super chair. I love this. I don't know what brand it is. I found it online somewhere when I built my studio. But yeah, I love it. It's so good. It's so comfortable. It's got that many things that you can move to make it, you know, the proper height and angle and all these other things too. It's so good. Front range photography and drones said, even if Nikon and Canon do good on this round of mirrorless that they are putting out, who says that they won't fall behind and become complacent like they have done before? Interesting. Yeah, the a7S III II may be just a killer camera. Sony have been holding out on that one, and there's a reason why I think they're holding out on it. Well, apart from the EVF, but that's really going to be interesting. It's really way overdue now to be released. Crazy Newt said, as sensors are getting more complex, I think sensor yields are not as good as they were for basic sensors. Could be true. Altric saying hi. Van said, what computer are you using if you don't mind sharing? What laptops do you recommend for editing? I'll show you the exact computer I'm using. So I'm using that one there. You can see it? Yeah, there. So I'm using the Mac Pro here. So that's the computer that I'm actually using. I love it. It's probably still one of the best things that I've bought. It's still fantastic even for 4K video editing. It's terrific. So that's what I'm using to do everything on. Plus it's so quiet, you can't hear it. It's whisper quiet. So that's basically what I use for all my video editing. Obviously a Mac Pro for me, the newer Mac Pros would also be good as well if you're dealing. I have a MacBook Pro inside the house, but I do all my editing on this machine here. It's a high spec one though. It cost me, I don't know how much it was a lot. Mario said Nikon is not for August. They're going to show at Photokina 218 but not release. Okay, so perhaps that rumor is totally wrong then, Mario, so that's interesting. Aaron said, do Sony have Hot shoe have known issues. Well, they have on the A9, yes, that there's an issue with this one. It needs to be replaced. Apparently, I think someone was saying that they were coming off or something or being faulty. So you send it back. It's just they did a call out for the A9. But I have seen, this is the weak spot. I've seen a number of videos where this thing actually pulls off the camera. It's definitely not as strong as it could be. It is the one weak spot with Sony cameras, to be honest. The hot shoe is their weak link probably at this stage. It will, if you have a flash on that camera and you hit something and it bends, it will destroy the hot shoe and it will pull out of the camera, and it can happen quite easily. So you have to be very careful with running around with flashes on your cameras. Don't wear them on belts with a flash on, things like that, because if it does get knocked, it will potentially pull off your whole hot shoe. So be careful with that. Yes, it's a definite weakness. It might be autonomous, actually, Kevin. I think that could be right, actually. Mario said, I agree, the lens argument is obsolete. Yeah, it is. It's no longer relevant, even for Nikon and Canon. Even if they need to make their old lenses a legacy for the new mirrorless, go ahead and do it. Yeah, look, Sony have more than what you would ever need now. People need to get over that argument. It's no longer true. Especially now you've got Sigma, you've got Samyang on board. You know, you've got everything, the Sony lenses. You can use any third-party lenses with adapters. I mean, come on, it's not an issue. Mario said, new customers, new cameras, new lenses. Van said, thank you for showing me the Mac Pro, no worries. Mirrorless said, hi again. Your opinions on medium format from Fujifilm, Nikon. Look, I used to shoot medium format when I was shooting fashion. There's no way I'd ever use that for my type of shooting. Medium format really is only ever any good for studio work. It's too slow. I mean, it has benefits in the shutter sync speed, obviously, but you're going to start getting other global shutters and stuff that's going to be released very shortly anyway. I just don't like them. They're too slow for the type of work that the average photographer would do. So, yeah, they're no good in that respect, but they're great for studio if you need that high megapixel, beautiful quality, but it's certainly no good for anyone else. How are we going for time? I'm going to have to go in a minute. I need to go and get my coffee. Last couple of questions. Crazy Newt said, all these people bashing other companies because they use one certain one more than annoys me. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. There's room for all of us, honestly, especially when they know nothing about how much tech is shared in the background. Thanks, it's a hot shoe issue for the Sony. No, you haven't got that same issue that's been recalled, but the issue would still be there. Yes, it would still be the weak point. They need to basically change that whole hot shoe manufacturer and make something stronger. Daniel said, off to bed. Well, so I'm not off to bed, but I'm actually off to get a coffee before I go out for the shoot this afternoon. All right, guys. Thanks so much for everyone for tuning in. I really appreciate it all. If you can, give me a big thumbs up. Join our Facebook group. Don't forget to join that. If you are local, also join me for my workshop in August. I'd love to see you here with Kiara. In Melbourne. It's listed on my website. It's also listed down below here as well. So join us for that as well. And apart from that, I'll see you all in the next show. Front Range said, why no eCam software tonight? Because I'm doing more switching and changing cameras and stuff like that. I'm only going to probably use eCam for the frequently asked question type shows, Front Range. That's why. All right, guys. Catch you all for the next video. Bye for now. Good day from down under.